So welcome to the Marketo Unlock series. This is going to be a very casual session. We want to really just deep dive into things that people may have forgotten that Marketo can do. So even if you are really, if you're really into weight steps and use them a lot, if you're really into my tokens, use them a lot, we wanted to really deep dive into each of the types of areas and give you a feel for what we do every day when we use some of these functions. So my name is Veronica. I am the principal consultant at Blueprint ANZ and the head of our Victorian team. And I've been in the Marketo game for about 12 years and working across Asia Pacific, Europe, US, and some of you may have met me ages ago when I worked at Marketo, but it's always daunting when you see things like 20 plus years of something. It always makes you feel a bit old. But I'm going to let my colleague Andrew introduce himself.
Hi everyone, I'm Andrew. I'm a marketing consultant at Blueprint X ANZ. I've been with Blueprint for about 2 years now and MCE certified. Ever since I learned about Marketo, I've been loving it, trying to get as many things automated as possible. But yeah, that's me.
Awesome. So a little bit about Blueprint X for those of you who are interacting with us for the first time. So we're one of the fastest growing marketing, advertising, technology consultancies globally. So we have offices throughout the world. We have 200 plus worldwide experts on our team. I am from the Melbourne office, Andrew is from our Sydney office, but we do have offices across America, Europe, and through Asia. So wherever you need Marketo support, chances are there's a Blueprint person close by who could help you. So we do a lot of consulting around Marketo specifically, both strategic consulting, execution support, operational support, and business adoption. And last year, we were very fortunate to have picked up Marketo's Partner of the Year for Adobe, which was very exciting. But the team itself, across the years and across many different consultants, have done sort of almost 300 Marketo instances in those 10 years. We have 4 Marketo solutions architects on staff and a whole bunch of Marketo certified experts. So the bleeding purple is pretty much what we do. So the webinar series. So over the next few months, what we want is for members of our team. So today it's myself and Andrew. What we want is over the next few months, members of our team to introduce to you our favorite forgotten features. And by forgotten, we just mean you might be using them, but you might not have remembered some nuances of how these things work. And we want to tell you why we love these features. And honestly, this is just a big chance to be geeks for half an hour or so. So even though the webinar, I believe, has dropped itself into your calendars as 2 hours, we are not talking for 2 hours. Today, we're going to be talking for about half an hour with some questions. So we focus on demos over slides. So we're not going to be doing a whole bunch of slideware. In fact, I'm just about to switch straight over into Marketo to show you in real life. We're more about real life than theory, and we want to have a bit of fun with this because we're geeks more than anything else. So let's get to it. My first section is on advanced weight steps. Now, I love this feature. I use it constantly, and what I wanted to show you was a few very specific use cases for some of the advanced weight steps. Now, almost everybody who uses Marketo has used a weight step. And usually when you use a weight step, you're using a duration. So I am going to put people into a flow. I'm going to wait a specific amount of time, and then I'm going to perform an action. So 5 minutes, 10 days, 2 months, whatever. I think the longest duration weight step I ever put in was 5 years. I think people left. I think they dropped their Marketo instance before that weight step, before people ever came out of that weight step. But duration weight steps are things people use all the time. What I want to focus on are the two that people don't use all the time, which is the date function and the date token function. So we're going to have a look at each of these in turn. And I want to walk you through some of my favorite use cases for each of these and explain a couple of the gotchas along the way. So let's switch straight into our demo. So this is the RMS instance of Marketo. So we're going to be trying to sort of not show a heck of a lot here, but the I'm just going to up the browser resolution on this. So what I've set up is a very simple program to demo some of our wait steps, and I want to show you a couple of really interesting things about wait steps. So let's look at duration first, right? So it doesn't really matter what's in your smart list. What you put in your smart list is going to be dependent on what your campaign execution requirements are. But I just wanted to talk to you about a very simple kind of duration wait step. So this is the sort of thing you've seen all the time. So you might send an email, you might wait 2 days, and then you might follow up with an SMS. So that's what would be called a very, very simple wait step. And you just push 2 days into that wait step. Now, let's take that a tiny little bit further. Advanced wait steps run through this tiny little cogwheel over on the side here. So you may have even passed by it without even noticing it was there. So if you click on your little cogwheel, you get what's called the advanced wait properties. And you'll see here that there are a few different options that you have. But I wanted to show you very quickly an extension on the duration wait step. So so you go, okay, cool. You can put 2 days. Remember, the gotcha here is that this is natural language input. So you can put 1 minute, 2 days, 3 hours, whatever you want. You can't abbreviate. So you can't just put 2D or something like that. And you can't put MINS for minutes. You do have to write it all out. The entire smart campaign won't fail if you get that wrong. And Marketo won't tell you that you've got it wrong. It'll just skip over the wait step. So you've got to be quite careful that you get that format right. Now, a lot of the time people don't know that the duration wait step includes the ability to end on a specific day. So if we talk about this and sort of say, okay, I want the wait step to end from Monday to Friday. That means that if I had a 2-day wait step and somebody comes into my wait step at the beginning of the 2 days, and they go to the 2 days, and that 2 days ends in the middle of Saturday. What Marketo will do is it will not fire on the Saturday. It will wait until the following Monday at the time that you specify. So if you put 10 a.m., it will go, okay, cool. I'm going to wait 2 days, check to see if it's a Monday or Friday. If it's not, I'll wait to the next Monday, and then I'll go at 10 a.m. And you can see that that actually changes the format in the wait step at the front end. So you can be very specific about when you want that 2 days to end. And if what you want to do is you want it to be any day, but I want it to fire at 10 a.m., then you can also do that too. So you can go, okay, cool. The wait step can end at any day, but I want to wait to send that SMS until 10 a.m. because I know then that's when people are more likely to be looking at their phones. If somebody had qualified for this smart campaign at like 2 a.m., last thing I really want is to be sending them an SMS at 2 a.m. So start to think about the timing that you want your actual follow-up action to occur and use your wait step accordingly. So the next thing I wanted to show you was an idea about using the date token. So if you start to think about, okay, somebody's registered for my event. So let's just say that they have filled out a form for my particular event, and the flow I want is to send them a confirmation email. And then I might want to send them, wait 2 days, must end Monday to Friday, and then send them that follow-up email at 10 a.m. The next 10 a.m. that lands on a Monday or Friday after those 2 days, right? So I could send my confirmation reminder. And then maybe if this was an event, I can say, okay, my event is actually happening on the 29th of May, and I want to send an SMS at 4 p.m. because my event starts at 6, and maybe that SMS is about we're meeting at the restaurant at 5:30 or something like that. So the outbound SMS message. So I can wait until a specific date. So I can sort of say, okay, I want to wait specifically until the date of my event, which is the 29th at 4 p.m. And then I want to send this message. So this is an extension of the wait step. I want to be very, very specific about when that wait step ends. So and notice I'm using a combination of the duration and the date wait steps amongst this particular flow. Now, let's step it up. So I've got a couple of really cool examples as we go into. So we've had a look at the duration and we've had a look at the date. So now I want to have a look at a couple of examples of date tokens. So this is where you can start to really this is when you can start to get really underway with advanced wait steps, okay? So when we say date token, mean a lead token or a person token that is a date field, and or a my token that is a date field. So a date token in the my tokens in your program. Either of these will work. I'm going to focus on lead tokens. So I thought I'd focus on a couple of different examples. So the first one I'm going to look at is the classic birthday card example. So the birthday card is quite simple. I want to send someone a birthday message. And you can't do this in one smart campaign. And the reason for that is that the vast majority of the time, you're going to want to pick up and put someone into the campaign using probably a scheduled batch campaign, and a date token wait step can only be fired in a triggered smart campaign. So what we're going to do is do this as a two-step process. So I'm going to add them to my birthday, to my overall birthday program first. And how I'm going to do that is quite literally, I'm going to listen for when their date of birth is not empty and run this as a scheduled batch sort of every 24 hours. And I go, okay, cool. As soon as that person is created, they might not have a date of birth, so I don't want to send them a birthday card. But as soon as they do have a date of birth, let's add them to this flow. So date of birth is not empty. And the first flow step we're going to have is request campaign, because I need to trigger that card being sent out. So the request campaign feature, if you haven't seen it, is all about being able to sort of daisy chain your smart campaigns together. So in this way, I'm able to request the send birthday card, which is the second card in the series, the second smart campaign in the series. So the smart list in here is campaign is requested from the previous add to birthday. And what we're going to do is we're going to wait until the date token, until their date of birth. And on the day, so 10 a.m. on the day. So date tokens can be plus or minus a specific date, but we're going to land on the date of birth. The most important thing here is ticking this box that says use the next anniversary of this date, because my date of birth in 1974 happened a long time ago. So what you're looking for is the next anniversary of that birthday. So so what this is going to do is wait until my birthday next year, and at 10 a.m. on the day of my birthday, so if I save that down, it's going to send me my birthday card email. So every time someone has a date of birth, they get entered into this two-step process so that you get your birthday card or at 10 a.m. on your date of birth. And as long as you've updated your date of birth before this program goes around sort of 24 hours before, you'll fall into this particular smart campaign and this particular flow. So that's a quite simple one. So the classic birthday card, this is a very standard sort of Marketo date token campaign. I wanted to, just as my final example, step it up just a tiny little bit, and we're going to talk about something around software renewal. So imagine that you are a software provider and you have a field called renewal date. And that renewal date is filled in automatically through your CRM or some other process where you can actually see when the person is going to be renewing their software. So similar process, as before. So we've got our renewal date is not empty, which adds people to this particular program. And I've noticed the question has just come through. So we're going, I'll hit the questions just at the end, just to make sure that I can cover them all. So the renewal date's not empty. So if I go to my flow here, say, okay, cool. Much like before, I'm sending it into the request campaign. In my second smart campaign here, I have my campaign is requested, and I'm going into my flow step. So what I'm going to do is wait until 14 days before my lead renewal date. So I've got my date token. It's my lead renewal date. I don't need this next anniversary because I actually do care about the actual year this renewal date is set for. So renewal date minus 14 days at 10 a.m. At that point, I'm going to check to make sure that nothing happened to them while either I was waiting for the renewal date to come up, or the remove from flow, or the person stopped being a customer. Whatever your focus is, whatever your criteria is at this point, you can check against it. So it may be that your renewal date is removed if that person stops being a customer or something like that. So you just need to check against a criteria to make sure that they still should be in this campaign. If they aren't, or if they shouldn't be, what you can do is, so I've used is customer is true. What you go here, okay, cool. If is customer is false, and they're in this campaign, I'll remove them from the flow at this point, because I don't want them getting any of the flow steps going forward, not just this one, but any of the flow steps going forward. I don't want them to get any of those because they actually don't qualify for this renewal campaign anymore. And after that, after I've made sure that everyone who should be getting the renewal reminder is still eligible for the renewal reminder, I'll send them an email, and then I might send an alert to the salesperson that this person is ready for renewal. So, and that a renewal conversation should start. You could extend this out, and you could put them into a renewal nurture. You could send them into a telemarketing or a smart campaign, into a Salesforce campaign or a Dynamics workflow. That means that telemarketers could start calling down. So whatever you need to do as part of that renewal process, you could kick into play at this point. Just kind of listening for the renewal. So that's sort of an overview of those three types of wait steps. So what I'm just going to do is very quickly. I'm just going to have a look at the questions. So hi, Brooke. Thanks for the question. So on the birthday one, will that fire every year as long as I've allowed people to go through the flow every time? Yes, it will. So what you could do is sort of set up your flow set up your smart campaign to only allow them through the flow like once every few months. I mean, as we know, people only have a birthday once a year. So you could stop them from going through all the time, but maybe once in every sort of period. But yeah, that's going to keep going as long as you allow people to go through that flow. So I had a question from Nick, and he said, I've never encountered the request campaign feature before. Are there any gotchas I should be aware of when using it? So I could spend another sort of half an hour on request campaign, but the one thing I will say about when you're using that request campaign feature is that you need to build it backwards. So you need to have that campaign is requested flow step in place in the campaign you want to request. So you need a live triggered smart campaign where the trigger is campaign is requested and Marketo flow action as the filter criteria. So once that's set up, you can then call that campaign from anywhere else using the request campaign feature. So it's actually a really powerful feature that allows you to ensure that one set of processes are finished before you start another. So just going to check. Cool. Just checking. There's another question coming up. That was Nick. So, to wrap it up, the advanced wait steps are a really powerful feature. And as you drill more into them, just remember that the date token one only works on triggered campaigns, and it must be a date field type. You can't just put a date into a string field and hope that that works. It must be a date field for that to work. But and for some of the others, just think about when you want your wait to end. So a lot of people just put in like 2 days or 3 days or 4 days and don't think, oh God, maybe they filled out the form at like 7 a.m. and I'm sending them an SMS 2 days later. Think about when you want that wait step to end and really use the power of Marketo to help you control how these things work.
Hi everyone. So today I'm going to talk through my tokens a little bit, what they are, what some of the use cases are. So let's jump straight into it. So we've all heard of tokens. Tokens are the things you reference in email, that sort of stuff that refer to first name, account owner, whatever it may be. My tokens are a little different. To be specific, there are custom variables that you can create and use in your programs or campaign folders. And depending on where they were created and where you are in Marketo, they take 3 different forms. The first of which is local, second inherited, and third overridden. Now, a local my token is a my token that's been created at the program level. So if you're in program A and you navigate to the tokens tab, you create a few tokens inside of that program. They are local to that program and they will not be seen in program B or C. They are local to program A. An inherited my token is when you create a my token at the campaign folder level, and program A, B, and C are all within that campaign folder. Due to that, they all have these tokens within that folder inherited in their my tokens section. So those are inherited down from the campaign folder level. And the third form is overridden. So an overridden my token is essentially an inherited token that has been changed at the program level. So to back it up a little bit, so we've gotten my token A created at the campaign folder level. Below that is program A, thus inheriting that my token. If you then go into program A and the my tokens tab and you change that token, it will become overridden. Once that is overridden, it will no longer take the value from the campaign folder level token. So it's important to remember that if you are relying on that a substantial amount. So what are the use cases for my tokens? So my tokens work really well in multi-asset programs that have have static information that is referenced across many assets. So I'm going to jump right into Marketo to go through 2 examples we have. So the first one here is an event series. Now this is a really standard event series. I've actually cloned the Marketo Unlock because it's an event series and it's a good example for this. In terms of the assets, it's a very standard program template. It's comprised of emails, for a form and a landing page to take the customer through the full journey. And if we, at the program level here, if we navigate to the My Token section, we can see in here that there are 14 local tokens. Now these local tokens have been created at this program's level. So that's essentially that piece. And then going through what these tokens are, these are all pieces of static information that are going to be referenced across more than one asset. Now, there's not much purpose in this example in terms of efficiency of creating a my token for a sort of bespoke piece of content. For example, in the thank you landing page, that will be fairly bespoke and it won't be referenced across multiple assets. For that reason, you can just make that or not my token that. But for things like date and speaker, it is very helpful in terms of the way that as you go through the journey. And the reason for that is if you built out this journey without my tokens, you go through your standard procedure, you build the assets out and you start your journey. If at some point a speaker pulled out or the date was pushed back, you would have to go into each asset that reference those pieces of static information and update that manually. Now, the benefit of my tokens is we can have all of this information on the my tokens tab here, and without needing to edit the draft, without needing to reapprove it, without needing to go into each asset manually, we can just change it from one location and it all updates. I can't tell you how excited I was when I learned about these things. They're honestly amazing. And to show off a little bit of how it looks, once we've created these tokens, they're now referenceable in the assets of that program at the local level. So if we look at, and this is just one of the assets from that example, this is the invitation. It's the previewed version. And as we can see, all the content on here has populated. If we take a look at the draft, we've got a few my tokens in here. So it's a very simple way to reference it. And it's based on the naming convention that you give that my token. So we've got my.speaker for the speaker's name. So obviously put some time into getting a pretty good naming convention system for these. And you just put them throughout. And you'll see with most of the assets in this program, they look very similar to this. They have bespoke content that's only there for that piece, for that asset. And then there's the static information. Now, if there's a lot of static information in your program, by all means, go nuts and tokenize it as much as you can, because it saves you time. And to sort of show off exactly how that works, if, for example, in this event, I could no longer attend it and I was no longer a speaker, I could just jump straight into the my tokens of this program, change that across to Veronica, save that one, and that is now cascaded down to all assets that reference the my.speaker caps token. So if we refresh that and we go into the preview, how we reference it here, let's refresh this one. And let's just check where we have that one, speaker caps. Let's change this one actually, Veronica. We'll save that one and then we'll give the preview a refresh. So my name is currently at the top. We refresh that. And because we've changed that my token and we've saved it, that should cascade down. And Veronica is now the from. So you don't actually even need to go back into the asset. You can just refresh them. So that's sort of the general way that the local tokens work. At the bottom here, we can see this one called an inherited token. Now, this is what I was discussing before. This is a token that's been created at the top level of the top folder level. So if we go to the examples here and the my token section, we can see that this is a local token to this campaign folder. Now, because there are programs within that, they have inherited this token. Now, I'm sure you're wondering what are some of the reasons you'd want a my token to be inherited to all those programs. And a really good example of that is exactly copyright. A lot of your assets will need a copyright at the bottom. And when you do eventually tick over to 2021, you can just come here straight away and update that. And for those that, it is a very reasonable thing to say that snippets can be used for that too. There's just differences in functionality and it's really about preference. But the one thing that tokens can't do is dynamic content. So that's a benefit of snippets.
Hey, Andrew, we've had a comment online. Could you take your browser out a little bit, like
oh, sorry,
magnification, just so people can see it a little bit better.
Is that any better? There we go.
Yeah. So we've also had a question. Can you explain why you would use text versus rich text tokens?
Yeah, sure. So so the difference is, so I'll actually go into an example to show the differences off. Zoom out a little bit. So in this example, I've mostly used the text ones. But the differences are simply in what you can do with it. So if I add in a rich text one here, and I click to edit, I have a rich text editor. There's a whole lot of more options in there that you can play with. And it's pretty flexible in terms, it's a rich text editor. That's exactly what it is. Whereas
so you can add images, links, you can use bullet points, so you can build this out as like a full complete piece of content.
Exactly right, yeah. And if you reference that in the asset, it completely comes out, which we'll actually talk about in my next example. Whereas text my tokens are a little different in that you can only enter in content like that. So it's for those very standard things you don't need edited too much. So that's the big difference. It's a rich text editor versus a data value in text sort of are there. And there are a few different my tokens. We won't go into them. We haven't got the time to go into them. But yes, it's a good question. Yes, so that's essentially local tokens and inherited tokens. Now, that was an example where the goal is efficiency. The whole idea is that we try and make this setup that we can easily change and save time. You know, it's the worst thing in the world is if you have not set up my tokens for an event series and you end up having a few changes. No, not one, not two, not three, 4 changes to an event, and it drives you mad. So that's an example of how to use it in an efficient way. My next...
That's also quite annoying if you've built 7 different versions of this event across 7 different cities and somebody wants to change a small piece of detail like the name of the event. So having to go back through 7 different programs with 7 or 8 different assets under each and change the name of the event can be quite daunting.
Yeah, exactly right.
And you're going to make a mistake.
Mm. And one final benefit is when you clone that program, those local tokens come with it. So you can very easily and scalable and change these in a scalable fashion. So it's quite a good tool in that regard. The second tool, the second example rather, is a standard newsletter. Now, the purpose of my tokens usage in this, in my mind, is more so safety net. So in this email, and I'm going to briefly just jump into the asset and preview it, we've got a very standard newsletter. It's got 4 articles, an intro, and it's actually the IMS one, or the Blueprint X one. And it's fairly standard. Now, the point of this use of my tokens is, let's say you're in a business that has got a range of skill levels with Marketo. There's one Marketo gatekeeper who sort of manages the vast majority, and there are a few lower level people that are still learning. If you didn't want to overwhelm them with that of the email editor, you know, everyone remembers their first time going into the email editor, we could set up my tokens for each of these articles. And they would be rich text tokens in which that person could come in, could change all the content outside of the email editor at the program level. And once it's updated, it'll then just shoot through. So I'll go into the my tokens section for this one and we'll have a look. So in here, I've labeled this A through E content relating to each article. And I've done that because this looks at it alphabetically. It's just the way I like to do it. It makes sense to me. And if we double click on this one, this is relating to the introduction. So that's this paragraph just here. And we can click to edit. So we can actually change that to how we want it to look, keep the formatting, whatever we want to do with that rich text editor. And this keeps, if you want that person to be kept outside of it for some reason, this is a very easy way to do that. And I think the final thing I'll talk about with this one, is when we go back to the tokens tab, if we go to the My Copyright, an inherited token for this program, and we double click on that one, and we change that value, that then becomes an overridden token. So that's how we can see, you know, the differences between inherited versus overridden. And all that means is this will no longer take the value for the inherited token. It has this overridden value. It's essentially a local token at this point. So it is worth discussing whether it's actually needed to change that inherited token to override that one, or if you should just make a new local token to that program. So it's another discussion that you should probably be having before you do that. But that sort of sums up my piece on my tokens. So just to clarify again, in my mind, those two examples go through sort of efficiency and not pulling out your hair, and versus the sort of safety net and what you can do with my tokens. I'll hand back to you now, Dave.
So keep your screen up. So the one of the other things I sort of wanted to just add to that kind of my token inherited token power is you've just put that token at the campaign folder just above where your programs are. Can you imagine the power of it if you put it at the absolute highest possible level, so at your active marketing programs level, and every single program in your entire instance is inheriting that copyright token. So the whole idea then being that I don't have to go through all of my snippets. And so you mentioned that sort of when you would use a token versus a snippet. Sort of if you use a snippet, what that will do is you update your snippet, it cascades across all of the assets that are using it. And unless you're using the no draft snippet approval process, you will have to reapprove all the assets that are using it. It's kind of like a sneak attack, the program way of doing it, the program token way of doing it, because if you just update that, no asset is put into draft, nobody will notice the difference. It's just the administrator doing their annual processes of just updating the copyright year. It cascades down through everything because they're all using the same token. So so in this particular example, I would think very carefully about whether or not you decide to override the local token, but there could be good reasons for override the inherited token, that there could be good reasons for doing that. But if you start to expand that out to things that you might want to cascade across your whole instance, you can see how efficiencies could be gained across not just across a group of programs, but across all the programs in your Marketo instance if you start to think big enough. So are there any more questions for either of us? So about tokens or about advanced wait steps? The questions we've had so far have been amazing. So thank you so much for joining in. So if there's no more questions, then we'll say goodbye from Blueprint. But thanks so much for hanging out with us. Thanks for talking about our favorite forgotten functions. And I hope you tune in for our next webinar where 2 more of our colleagues are going to talk about the forgotten functions that they love. So thanks everybody and have a great day.
Thanks so much.